I've been locked in my bathroom for hours and I'm too scared to leave. I'm afraid for my life. I don't know why I'm posting this here, but I want my parents to know that I love them, and I want them to know what happened to me. If you listen to this, please share it, and hopefully the cops or my parents will see it. I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'll start from the beginning. I'm 19 years old and just moved into my own apartment for the first time, 2 hours away from my hometown, a small religious community, to a big city in comparison. The city is really not very big, nothing like Chicago or Boston, but it's bigger than anywhere that I've ever lived. The apartment I moved into is old, but rent is super cheap, and I landed a waitressing job at the diner across the street. I don't know anyone in this city. I'm alone, if you don't count my cat, Bastian, but I'm not lonely. In fact, until a few days ago, I've never felt more free. However, I'm regretting moving so far away from my parents. I'm all by myself and have no one to turn to for help. So, I'm reaching out to you guys. Please help me. I don't know what to do. No one is responding to my text messages, and my calls won't go through. I'm really scared. Sorry, I lost my composure for a moment there. I'll get back to the story. A week ago, I started my new job at the diner. The owners are this really sweet old couple, Bonnie and Marvin. They said they were looking for someone to take care of the place, while Marvin took Bonnie to an out-of-town doctor for some medical condition she has. I'm not sure what, but it's enough for them to travel. The job is simple enough. I take people's orders, sweep, and close up the shop at 9 PM every weeknight. Though customers were few and far between, I'm being paid well, and most customers tip me nicely. This diner has been here for at least 40 years, so a lot of the customers are regulars. I didn't have a problem at all until 4 days ago, on Tuesday night. It was a slow day. I could count on my hand how many customers we had that day. I was behind the counter watching some television from the TV on the wall when the bell on the door alerted me to a customer. I checked my watch and it was 8:32. I was hoping to leave right at 9, but this customer meant that I had to stay an extra 20 minutes or so, depending on how much of a hassle they were. Regardless, I put on my best smile and welcomed the customer. He was a tall man in his early to late 40s with a poorly styled comb-over. The roots of his brown hair were just greying. His suit, dishevelled, was almost the same grey. His tie was loose and wrinkled, suggesting that he probably looked as worn down as he did then for most, if not all of the day. He met my gaze with cold eyes and slowly walked over to the stool in front of me.
"Coffee,"
he muttered under his breath, just loud enough for me to hear over the blaring TV, and he sat down. I enthusiastically told him that I had just brewed a fresh kettle and would be happy to get him some. I was hoping for a generous tip. I poured him a cup, brought out some sugar and cream, and asked him if he'd like something to eat. His eyes were dark and bore into mine flatly. My skin prickled uncomfortably as the seconds ticked by. He didn't respond to my offer of food, nor did he touch his coffee. I could sense something wasn't right with this guy. I decided to hide in the back with the cook until the man was ready to leave. So I muttered something to him about calling me if he needed anything and scurried to the back. The cook was outside the back door, the door propped open with a trash can, smoking a cigarette. I had a stool just inside the back room, so I sat down and scrolled through my phone for a bit. Before I knew it, it was just a few minutes before closing time. I peeked out of the kitchen to see the man had left. There was a small stack of money and some change on the counter. I found this strange, as I had not heard the bell on the door ring when he left. I shrugged it off and got up to take his dishes back. As I approached the counter, I noticed that his coffee looked untouched completely. It was full, and now cold actually, and I found this to be very strange at this point, but tried to rationalize it and forget about it. Maybe he had somewhere to be suddenly, or he was just being polite when he ordered it. Regardless, I cleaned up his dishes and locked the doors. I went to ring up the coffee at the register. I noticed that one of the bills he left had some writing on it. It wasn't sloppy cursive, so I had to really give it a good look before I could read it clearly. Just under George Washington were the words,
"I like it when you wear red."
My breath caught in my throat. I had been wearing a red dress the day before, but that was before my shift at the diner, as I wear a uniform at work. This man had seen me the day before, and for some reason wanted me to know that. My stomach knotted and turned wildly. I slammed the money in the register and quickly shut off the lights. I bolted into the back and nearly ran face first into the cook. I told him what had happened, and he agreed to walk me to my apartment across the street. I locked my door as soon as I was inside and double-checked all the curtains and blinds. I was really creeped out, but soon dismissed everything and curled up in bed with my cat. Perhaps I was taking everything the wrong way. Maybe he thought he was paying me a compliment or something. I don't know. I had fallen asleep at some point, but was woken up sometime in the night by my cat. He was facing the window, his back arched and bristled, making a growling sound. I had never seen Bastien like that. He's always super relaxed and sleepy. But the cat I saw was totally different. "Bastien," I called out. "It's okay, buddy. It's okay," I whispered and reached out to him. He looked back at me for a moment, but turned and kept growling at the window. I decided to get up and open the curtains to see what was bothering Bastien. I got out of my blankets and swung my legs over to the side of the bed and was about to pull back the curtain when I heard a faint tapping on the glass. I froze, and it felt like my heart was about to leap up my throat. Bastien growled louder and hissed. The tapping got louder and quicker before it just stopped. I strained to hear anything else, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears and Bastien softly growling. I picked him up and held him close as I hid under the covers until morning. I went into work and went on with my day without any issues. We had a few more customers that day than the day before, and someone left me a $20 tip on a $12 bill. I was feeling optimistic, and the previous day's happenings were far off my mind. I closed up, said goodnight to Ricky, the cook, and made my way home across the street. I pulled out my keys, and just as I was about to unlock the door, I noticed the edge of some paper sticking out from under my door. I squatted down and pulled on the edge of the paper. It was folded in half and had my name written on it in the same sloppy cursive as the note did on the dollar bill. I bolted upright and unlocked my door in the blink of an eye. I slammed it shut, locked it, and leaned against it while I gasped for air, my lungs constricting with anxiety. Bastien was dozing on the couch and barely looked up to acknowledge my presence. I rubbed my fingertips against the edge of the note and contemplated reading it. I was scared of what it would say and considered throwing it away without looking at it, but my curiosity got the best of me, and with quivering hands, I opened the letter.
"I like the way you talk to your cat,"
it read. My knees wobbled and strained to keep up. I immediately called the police. They came within 15 minutes and took a statement from me. I told him about the man, the note that he left before, how Bastien woke me up, the tapping, and now this letter. They filed a report and told me that they would have a patrol car keep an eye out around here at night. He told me to stay safe and call them if anything else came up. I didn't feel very reassured. They left and I slept on my couch that night. The next day went by without any incident. Ricky walked me to my apartment again after closing and offered to stay the night. I was grateful for the offer but declined and wished him a good night. The following morning, I woke up to a package on my doorstep. It had no information on it, like where it came from or who sent it. I had a bad feeling about it, so I called the police again to have them come and check it out. It was the same officer that took my statement the first time. He picked up the package and came inside. We sat at my dining table as he carefully opened it up. Inside was a picture of me when I was a little girl. I didn't recognize the photo. I was sure that I had never seen it before. I remembered the day, however, as I was at a carnival with my dad. He had to use the restroom, so he told me to stay put while he quickly relieved himself. A few moments after my dad left me, a man approached me and told me that my mother was in a horrible accident and that I had to quickly come with him. Now, I was a naive kid. I was overwhelmed with worry about my mother and didn't think to ask who he was and if he had told my father. The man took my hand and started to speed walk away. We made it about 20 feet when my dad came barreling towards us. He scooped me up and held me close. He was yelling at the man, and a group of people started to stare and gather around us. Somehow, the man ran away. I looked up at my dad and asked him about Mum. I told him that she was hurt and needed help. He shook his head and held me close for a long time. I think he was crying, but I never saw. The officer picked up the photo and turned it over. In the back, written in that all too familiar scrawl, was
Gummy bear.
And it had been the secret code that my father and I made up in case of a real emergency. If someone tries to take you and says that me or Mummy are hurt, wait for them to say our secret code. If they don't say it or don't know it, I want you to scream as loud as you can and wait for someone you know to come and help you, okay? I could hear my father's words as if he was right there with me. I felt sick, my skin flashed hotly, and my head felt faint. I explained the significance of the phrase to the police officer. He told me to call my parents and ask them if they sent me anything recently. I did, and both of my parents denied sending me anything. They grew concerned quickly. I didn't want to worry them too much, so I told them that it was nothing and to forget about it. The cop took the box and picture and told me that he was going to look into it. In the meantime, he told me not to let Baston outside for a while. I asked why, but the cop evaded the question and left in a hurry. I couldn't help but feel like he knew something that he wasn't telling me. I went to work, closed up, and came back home uneventfully. I showered and curled up in bed with Baston. I fell asleep quickly and slept soundly the whole night. The next day, yesterday, was my first day off, and the day Marvin and Bonnie would be back from being out of town. I wanted to tell them what has happened, as it all pointed to that customer from the other night. I dressed quickly and made my way across the street. Marvin was standing at the register ringing up a customer's bill. He smiled at me and asked how the diner was while he and Bonnie were away. Before I could answer, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You know, I really appreciate what you're doing for us. We haven't had an applicant in a long while. Bonnie and I are grateful for your help." I smiled awkwardly and nodded. I decided that I wouldn't tell him what had happened. Instead, I decided to ask if he's seen anyone like that before, as most customers were repeat customers. I described the way he looked, how he didn't drink his coffee, and the way he left without a sound. "Didn't touch his coffee?" He furrowed his brow and rubbed his chin. "That's strange. I've never had someone do that." His eyes clouded over, and he looked off somewhere over my shoulder as if deep in thought. I thanked him, told him to give Bonnie my best wishes, and turned to leave. Marvin asked if I was alright. I nodded, gave him a half-hearted smile, and told him that I'd be in for my shift Monday. I came back home and took a shower to unwind. I ran errands, ate lunch, and came back home. When I was unlocking the door, I realized it was already unlocked. Now, I always lock my door when I leave. It's something I am very careful about, especially as of late. I slowly opened the door and tiptoed in. all of the lights were off and all of the curtains closed, so it was dark and shadowed. I could feel my heart beat in my head. I set my grocery bags down and snuck around my apartment complex, and snuck around my apartment carefully. I checked every room and my apartment was completely empty. In fact, it was too empty. I couldn't find Bastian anywhere. I ran outside with a bag of catnip and a bag of cat treats in my hands. I hysterically called out for him and walked around the apartment, up the street, and all around, trying to find him. He just vanished. The sun had set, so I came home, defeated and lonely. I left a bowl of cat food outside in hopes that he would find his way home. I was really afraid. I was sick with worry. How did he get out? Where was he? Bastian was an indoor cat. He was declawed when I adopted him. He had never been outside before. Thoughts of cars, coyotes, and unpleasant things swirled in my mind. I sobbed quietly and fell asleep at some point. I woke up at about 2 a.m. I got up, threw a hot pocket in the microwave, and plopped in front of my TV. I was watching How It's Made when I heard a scratching at the door. I immediately muted the TV and strained my ears at the door. I heard another faint scratch. I scrambled to the door but stopped before I opened it. I carefully peeked through the peephole. The hallway was dimly lit with fading light bulbs, and it was as still as a picture. No one was there. I swung open the door and found Bastian barely breathing. He was soaked wet in something that smelled like copper. I wailed and scooped him up and held him close. He was cold, and the liquid on him seeped into my clothes. It was this muddy brown colour. I took him inside and cleaned him with a warm washcloth. He slowly regained his strength and warmed up. I fed him so much tuna and treats and bawled all night. I was so relieved that he was alive. But where he had gone and what had happened were a complete mystery, though I knew that man had something to do with it. When morning came, I called the police again. They sent a different guy this time. I gave them the washcloth that was dirty with that stuff Bastian nearly drowned in. He took another report and basically did nothing. I was furious and terrified. He told me that he would increase patrols in the area and to stay in. He left, and I did just that. I spent the day eating junk food and cuddling with Bastian. After dinner, I took Bastian to bed with me. It was about 8:30 and was just dozing off when I heard a soft tap. My eyes flew open and my whole body stiffened like a statue. The tapping continued, gradually getting louder and louder. I slowly got up and pressed myself against the wall beside the window. I carefully peeled back the very edge of the curtain and peeked around the corner. There was a man there. He was tall, but I couldn't make out any features. He was just a black, empty figure outside my window. Suppressing a scream, I scooped up Bastian, grabbed my phone, and bolted into the bathroom. And that's where I am now. It's 11:30, and I can still hear the tapping. I tried calling the police, my mum, even the diner, but none of my calls will connect. Bastian is curled up in my arms. I think he's scared too. I'm going to stay in here and try to make contact to the outside. I hope this posts. 1 a.m. Okay, so the tapping stopped. I don't know if he's still out there and I'm too scared to look. I'm going to wait a bit longer before I leave the bathroom. 1:45 a.m. I'm really scared. That muddy liquid is seeping in under the bathroom door. It looks like pond water, but it smells really bad. I don't know what's going on. Bastian and I are in the bathtub. 2:30 a.m. The bathroom light just went out. It's really dark in here. I'm using my phone as a flashlight. Bastian won't stop trembling. My text messages won't send. God, please help me. 3:15 a.m. My bedroom light turned on. I can see a shadow walk around in my room. The liquid is all over the floor and soaking into the rug. The smell is very strong. I'm really scared right now. 3:23 a.m. Oh God, he's outside the door. I can see his feet under the door. 4 a.m. He's still there. He's not doing anything. What the fuck is going on? 4:24 a.m. I don't think it's human.